Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Odoo webinar titled Odoo Accounting 101, subtitled Odoo Accounting by Odoo Accountant. I'm the Odoo Accountant, Connor. I'll be your host for today's webinar. The format of this webinar is that we're going to go through a very brief introduction. We're going to go into a live demo, and at the end, I will be answering some of your Q&As. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please remember to drop them in the live chat, and I'll be answering them at the end of the session. Our agenda for today is that we're going to explore Odoo from an Odoo accountant point of view. We're going to start with an introduction, talk a little bit about why you should choose Odoo, go into a live demo, and then end with a Q&A. So what is the mission of this webinar? The mission of this webinar is to explore Odoo from a professional point of view by presenting a real-life, hands-on demo from the Odoo accountant, me. So before we get into the actual of why you should use Odoo, I'm going to explain a little bit about my background. We're going to explain a little bit about my background just so we can gain a little bit of credibility as well as some background information, just so you guys know that I'm coming in from an unbiased point of view and I just am not, trying to sell Odoo just because I work at Odoo. So a little bit of background. So if you look at my resume, you can see that I'm very much a textbook Wall Street banker. I started out in accounting and I really went through the various phases of the Wall Street banking career. I started out in my career as a very small accounting firm, probably the size of Odoo, maybe a little bit bigger, specializing in hospitals. And then for my second sort of internship round, 6-month internship, I went to JP Morgan and Chase, where I worked in both the external reporting function as well as the financial control function, using a lot of different accounting softwares that we're going to explain a little bit later on in the webinar. And then I moved on to Goldman Sachs, which used a completely different accounting software, which we're also going to explore a little bit on. And then I ended up, my previous career before Odoo was I ended up in JP Morgan for the APAC region, which for whatever reason also used a completely different accounting software than the rest of JP Morgan. So throughout the very beginnings of my career, I used what is now a very, very old accounting software called Great Plains. But some of you may know Great Plains as Microsoft Dynamics. Microsoft Dynamics actually bought Great Plains, and most of the functions is actually derived from Great Plains. You can see from these two screenshots that it basically is almost the same accounting software. Then at JP Morgan, I used SAP. I think when you think of ERP software, that's the software you mainly think of. And then at Goldman Sachs, I used PeopleSoft, which is the Oracle version of the accounting software. So what is it about these accounting softwares versus Odoo that people should really look out for? Well, for a very small, medium-sized company, SAP and Oracle first carries a very high price tag, and it also carries a lot of functions that you might not use. SAP and Oracle were designed for much larger companies without really a focus on the smaller companies. So why wouldn't you use something, let's say Microsoft Dynamics or Quicken or QuickBooks or any of that? Well, Quicken or QuickBooks was actually designed for tax professionals in the United States. It's not really meant for a mid or medium-sized company. You could use Microsoft Dynamics, but I think what Odoo presents itself is that it's a very user-friendly function, which we're going to explore a little bit on in the live demo. So why would you choose Odoo? So you would choose Odoo for three simple reasons. Number one, it's simple. Number two, it's integrated. And number three, it's user-friendly. So what do I mean by all of these? Simple is that you literally could start a free trial and completely know how to use Odoo. Know how to make journal entries, know how to make invoices, know how to make purchase journals. Why is it integrated? It's integrated with if you're a small business who's selling on the storefront, integrated with your point of sale system. It's integrated with your invoice module. It's integrated with your purchase module. So everything that you do in one module carries all the way into the accounting module. So it's not like you have to record a purchase or an invoice, which we're going to explore later on, and then have to go back into the accounting module and then record it again. It's already automatically done for you. And number 3, it's user-friendly. And once we get into the demo, you can see that everything is within a click of a button. Everything is laid out, it's clean, it's organized. Honestly, using it for 9 months now, I can probably use it blindfold. So let's get into our live demo. So we're now at, I basically set up this, false sort of Odoo demo. You can literally go to www.odoo.com, click on try it for free, and pick out your modules, and it will look exactly like this. And so we started with a very clean slate. I didn't make any modifications to it. We're going to walk through all of the modifications together so you can know how easy it is to get started. So I basically picked a couple of different modules I think I'm going to use. So I picked sales, purchases, accounting, and you also have an app drawer in case you want to explore different apps that you might need in the future. You can explore the point of systems as well as manufacturing, anything to really match your company. So let's explore the accounting module first. So we're in the accounting module now. And as you can see, everything is very laid down. You have all your headers here, and then you have different journal blocks for your most important and used journals. So you can see I have my bank journal here, as well as cash, vendor bills, and customer invoices. So before we even get started on those nitty-gritty aspects, let's go to the very basic, setting up your chart of accounts. So like for every accounting sort of company or every company in general, you need a chart of accounts to get started. So how do I set up my chart of accounts? So I'm going to go into configuration and then go into chart of accounts. Easy as 1, 2, 3. So as you can see here, Odoo has already picked out a couple of chart of accounts based on the country that I'm located. If you want to change your country, you can actually go to settings, and you can actually see that it's picked a fiscal package for me, a Hong Kong chart of accounts. You can actually install more if you choose it. So let's go back to chart of accounts. And as you can see here, it's picked out a couple of balance sheet accounts, a couple of expense accounts, and a couple of other accounts. Actually, before I get started, let me explain a little bit about this false business that I set up. So this business is called Con Sushi Express. We are a sushi company selling sushi. And so we're in the food business, but we also have separate assets, a lot of expenses here and there. You also have, inventory and so on. So I already have a fixed assets account here. But if I want to create a new one, but I'm not really sure of where to put it, and I want to duplicate something that Odoo has already done, it's very easy. What you can do is you can click into the account that Odoo has already set up for you, click action, and click duplicate. Literally as easy as that. You don't have to think about anything. It's already set up. It's a one account, fixed assets, and all of that. So I'm going to set up my fixed asset account. So let's say I need a sushi rice cooker. And that's a fixed asset. So as you can see here, we have a different couple of fields to see what we need to do. So should I automate this asset or no? So what this means, automated asset, is one of my favorite functions about Odoo actually. So when you buy an asset, it needs to be depreciated over the course of the asset. And so with SAP and Quicken, Microsoft Dynamics, a lot of that you have to do manually, meaning every month end, you have to write it down somewhere in your planner, write it down somewhere in your monthly month-end summary that you need to depreciate certain assets. Well, Odoo does that for you automatically. So what I can do is that I can create and draft. So what that basically means is that it's going to create the asset module in draft so I can take a second look at it before we actually start the depreciation. So I'm going to create it in draft. So once you click that, it's going to ask you for an asset module. So we can actually create separate asset modules in the configuration module. configuration option and click Asset Module. Well, what's great about Odoo is that you can literally click anywhere here and it will actually do it in that module as well, in that option as well. So I'm click Asset Module and I'm going to create an edit. So let's say this asset module is going to be sushi rice cookers. I'm going to be buying a whole bunch of sushi rice cookers. You know, I'm like booming in business, you know, completely booming. And so I want to depreciate this asset. Let's say for my company, I've decided that the sushi rice cookers are going to last me 3 years. And so that's 3 times 12. I'm an accountant, but math is not my strong suit. So we did some math there, and it's going to be 36 months. And I'm going to click the fixed asset account as that fixed asset I just created, which is the fixed asset copy. And the depreciation account, we're going to actually go into accumulated depreciation, which we actually do not have. So let's actually choose, let's actually create and edit a new account for our accumulated depreciation. So as you can see, you can actually create an edit right here in the asset module, and it'll actually do it in the fixed asset portion. So for the code, I'm just gonna write some random string of code. Let's put the 2's, and I'm gonna put sushi rice cooker accumulated depreciation. And this is going to be a depreciation. No, it's going to be current liabilities. There we go. Save. And then for my expense, I'm going to go to depreciation expense, which again, we don't have. So I'm just going to create one for depreciation expense. Choose the expense. And as you can see, as I'm doing this, Odoo has already sort of had options for you. As you can see here, you can have a list of assets, a list of liabilities, a list of equities, and it's already sort of chosen, or at least given you options of what you should pick. Save. So once I've done that, depreciation account, fixed asset account, okay, cool. This one I actually want to do. That's a copy, correct. Save. And so for journal, I'm going to put it as miscellaneous operations. Save. And so it's as easy as that. We set up our depreciation account, and then once we go to a purchase journal, I'm going to show you actually how this works. So I'm going to check the checkmark depreciated so that it knows that this account should be depreciated. Save. So we created our first asset account. So as you can tell, that was extremely easy. And then, you know, there wasn't really any thinking needed. And if you need to do this again in the future, again, you can click Action, Duplicate, and you can go through the same process. So let's say I finally, so that is one of my favorite features of Odoo, is that you can depreciate. I think one of the biggest and most challenging portions of accounting is really the depreciation. Once you're a very mid-sized company, you're going to have a lot of depreciation. You know, whether that's going to be your computers, your laptop. You know, if you're part of a people-driven business, your people can be depreciated. I know it's a very unusual concept, but it's something that is actually done in accounting, and sort of all of that. And it's very difficult to keep track of what needed to be depreciated and even what needed to be stopped. Let's say you buy 2 batches of laptops, one in January and one in June. Well, the one in January is going to stop depreciation much earlier than the one in June. So it's really difficult to keep track of that. And I think for a lot of us accountants, you know, without Odoo, without the automated system, is that we're going to keep a whole bunch of Excel spreadsheets of saying, you know, this is my depreciation log month over month, and this is what I need depreciation now, this one needs to be depreciated in the future. And that's really just something that's going to eventually haunt you in the future, because you're not really going to be able to keep track of what is already finished and what isn't. And then you're going to find yourself having to come back and catch up on all the that you missed, or you, you know, 1 month then find out that you depreciated too much of one asset. So I've set up that asset account, and so let's see it in action. So I'm going to go to vendors, I'm going to go to bills, and I'm going to create my first vendor bill. So vendor bills in this portion is going to relate to things that we owe other people, things that other people have invoiced us. So let's say, for example, I bought, you know, the sushi rice maker from sushiricemaker. I don't know, pro.org. Okay, this is my first time buying from this vendor, and so I'm going to create and edit a new contact card for him. So let's say this is Sushi Rice Maker. And even when you're adding new vendors, even when you're adding new customers, it's literally as easy as this to be able to create a new contact card. So let's say I Sushi Rice Maker Pro, let's say they're located in Japan. We buy all of our products from Japan. Save. And so this is my sushi rice cooker that I purchased in June 2020, in July 2020. Cool. And so for my product, I'm going to sushi rice maker, rice cooker / maker. And for my account, I'm going to choose the fixed asset account that we just created for the sushi rice maker, which is cool. Where's this account? Let me just find out. Yes. Supposed to do it from here. Yes. Okay, cool. Technical difficulties, please bear with me. Okay. Again, July 2020. As with setting up all accounting software, you're gonna experience some technical difficulties, but as you can see, we solved it quite quickly. So let's say it's $8,000, and so I'm gonna post that entry. And as you can see, once we've posted that entry, I picked the fixed asset account. The sushi rice maker is refusing to work, but it's basically the same thing that we did before. So as you can see, I chose the fixed asset account for my sushi rice maker. And so what happens now is that you're going to get a button that happens up here that tells you you have an asset. And that asset is based on the asset module that we just created earlier. So once I click on that asset, it's going to give me sort of this screen. So this screen is telling you that, hey, I see that you created something in that asset account. This is what you told me to do, and I created the draft for you. Can you please approve it? So I'm looking at it. I'm gonna see that, yes, it's $8,000. I want to depreciate for 36 months. I'm gonna do linear. And so the depreciation account is correct. The depreciation expense account is also correct. Everything is correct. And so I confirmed it. I'm going to save it. And let's say I want to make sure one last time before I really confirm it to make sure that all the depreciation is correct. And so if you sort of do this manually, you can tell that if we have an $8,000 rice cooker depreciated over 36 months for straight line, we're going to get about $222 per month. So I'm going to make sure that my depreciation matches that correctly. And so I'm going to click this button that says compute depreciation. It's going to basically give you an estimate before you actually approve it of what the depreciation is going to be. So compute depreciation is compute depreciation. And it's going to give you basically all the way until June 2023 of all your depreciations. As you can see, it's saying that on July 31st, 2020, I'm going to depreciate this much. And it's going to tell you like, this is what your accumulated depreciation is, and this is what the leftover value of the asset is. And so I'm going to take a good look over everything, and then it all looks fantastic. And so I'm going to click confirm. And so what happens now is that at June 31st, June 31st, around a certain time, Odoo bot, which is the automated robot that goes through and does all of this automation, is going to post that entry. And so you can actually see that entry once, if you come back here. I'm going to show you actually another window. You can see that entry as well of when each entry is posted. So they're going to automatically post this entry. I don't even need to think about it twice. I already know it's going to happen. But if you don't trust me, you can come back in August and see if the entry has been posted. So let's say I have an issue probably later on, and then I realize that, oh, the sushi rice maker I bought from this company is fake. Let's say it's not from Japan, it's from some other country. And so it's not going to last 36 months. It's only going to last, I don't know, 10 months. And so at any point in time, you can actually come in during this depreciation and modify it. So I'm going to click modify depreciation. And so let's say the company lifespan was incorrect. The rice cooker lifespan was incorrect. And so it's going to be 10 months instead. Instead, I'm going to click modify. And then what happens now, if it hasn't started the depreciation at all, what it's going to do is basically it's going to shrink all of your depreciation down to 10 months. But let's say you've already depreciated July. Let's say it's already happened. So what will happen then? What will happen then is that Odoo bot is going to automatically calculate what is the difference in depreciation month over month from your 36 month to your 10 months, and then automatically book the entry to fix your depreciation. So let's go through an example. Let's say I'm going to post this entry. You can also manually post entries. I'm going to post this entry. Okay, well, I don't want to post that entry. Let's just create another render bill, and then we're going to sort of back post it for June. So I can sort of exemplify this module. So you should never do this because we're now in July, and so June should be closed, so you should never backdate anything. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to backdate. Again, we're going to set it up in the same way we just set it up before. Let's say, yes, I bought it. Let's say I received, let's say that my accounting person actually did it incorrectly. The acquisition date wasn't for June. It was for May. But we didn't receive the product until June, so we thought we should have depreciated. And so you can easily change your depreciation dates here. So let's say I've compute, confirm. And so let's post this entry. June has already happened, we're going to post it. And so what happens now, you can see that we posted an entry. So once you come back to this, you can actually see that the entry has been blackened out. And it also tells you what journal entry it's for. And you can actually come in here and you can reverse the entry if you think it's incorrect, or sort of duplicate it if you need another entry like that. So let's say that, we have the same issue. Again, the lifespan is incorrect. But, for this time, it's even worse. They sold us a rice cooker that was completely, already used for 2 months. So let's say the lifespan is for 2 months. I'm going to modify it. And so as you can see here, it's going to actually show you the actual entry you need to correct this. So you can see that we actually posted this entry. And so this is the correcting entry in order to bring you back to what you needed to before. And so I remember at JP Morgan with SAP, anytime I needed to fix anything, you couldn't go back and just fix it. You had to post an entry in the exact opposite way. And so you can see here, if this entry is incorrect, all I literally do is click reverse entry. I pick the reversal date, let's say as June, and I click reverse. And then the entry is already reversed. You don't have to think about what direction you need to post it in. You don't have to think about what accounts it should go into. I think with SAP and with Oracle, with all of that, it's built to the point where it's built for accountants. And so if you're someone who's very new, or a company that's very new, those systems, even the very simple systems, are going to be very confusing. When you need to reverse an entry in those systems, you can't just click reverse entry, because that isn't safe enough according to SAP. You have to go back, you have to create basically a brand new journal entry, and then in the system match them off. But in Odoo, what happens is that you literally just saw, I literally just click the reverse entry and the entry reversed, and it will automatically match them off. And even you can see, if I go to journal entries, you can see that these two entries are matched off. So that means that this entry is reversal of that entry. You even see it in the reference that it clearly states the original journal entry title. Cool. So that's one of my favorite features of Odoo, and I think it's one of the biggest features of Odoo that not a lot of people really know about or use. So I think another important feature of Odoo is that everything is really connected, meaning that if I do something, if I have a salesperson in the sales section, it's going to automatically come into the accounting section. So let's say I'll go to sales, and I'm going to, let's say, I have a person, Eunice at Odoo, who's going to order a bunch of sushi from me. So let's say I haven't set up products yet, so we're going to sort of go through that as well, and we're going to go through the beginning to end, and you're going to see how easy it is to set up products. So let's say I have some salmon. Literally, I clicked create product and the product was created. See how easy that was? I really didn't have to think about anything. And the tuna roll. Let's say she wants like 80 of these and like 90 of these. And we're from Japan, so the products are expensive. Those are going to be $70. $70 for each. And $100 for the tuna. And so I'm making a lot of money on this customer. And so, this is my quotation. I'm going to send it to her. I'm going to click confirm. I'm going to create the invoice, regular invoice, create and view invoice. And you can see that this is my invoice. And so I'm still in the sales module, but I've sort of teleported into the invoicing accounting module. And so if you take a look at this screen and then go back into the accounting module, click on customers invoices, you're going to see that same invoice we created in your sales module. So this is looking at it from an accountant point of view, which is why you see accounts here. You know, if you are a salesperson, you normally wouldn't see this. So what is it about Odoo that is so unique in this invoice? Well, the invoice is directly correlated to your journal entry. You don't have to create an invoice and then create another accounting journal to match off to this invoice. So you can see that there's a tab here that says journal items. And so journal items is basically what journal is going to be posted. You can tell that it's basically the same thing. There's just an extra line item for accounts receivable, which is basically us receiving that money. So you can see that it's very easy to pinpoint each invoice to each journal. You're never really going to have that situation where the salesperson creates an invoice, they send you that invoice, and you're going to have to manually create that journal. They can do it from the inside, and all that back end, people see what they need to see. Salespeople see what salespeople need to see, and accountants see what we need to see. And so there's never really going to be a time where there's going to be any overlapping or confusing information. So you can see that Odoo purchased all of this sushi. And so I'm gonna take a look at it, make sure that all of the accounting is correct. And so for me to post this entry, all I do is I click post. And the entry has been posted, the invoice has been validated. I can send it to her. Yeah, I can send it to her. And if you want to go back to see that journal, you can click on other info and you can actually see what invoice it is, what journal it is. So if you ever want to, search again for this invoice, you go to journal entries and you see your invoice, which is here. And so I think that that's one of the another key points of Odoo is that it's very simple and very user-friendly. Like, even if you had no idea anything about Odoo, you've never heard about it, you can literally come in, play around with the system, and get used to it in such a fast and easy way. I think when I first joined Odoo, I think I took a couple of days, maybe a week or so, to really play around with the system and sort of get to know the system and really know it from the in out. And so what else do we want to talk about? So I think what we're going to focus on now is sort of the real accounting portion. We're going to talk about bank reconciliation. And so bank reconciliation for small to medium-sized businesses, even for the bigger-sized businesses, is something that's going to be a pain in the butt to really do in Quicken or anything like that, because it's so difficult to really, change bank statements if you need to change them, or reconcile bank statements if you need to reconcile them. So I'm sort of going to walk you through how easy it is in Odoo. So in Odoo, I've already set up my bank account. You can actually see from my chart of accounts that we have a bank. It's labeled bank. And if I want to change the bank, let's say to my bank, let's say I use Japan High Quality Bank. And they have a special banking account just for sushi people. So Japan High Quality Bank for sushi people. And so I'm going to go into overview, and you can see that the bank is right here. And so what I can do is I can import a statement, meaning that you would pick an Excel file, you would import it, or you can actually very easily go into, just click on bank and click create. And then you can create your bank statements. Let's say you're a very small company and you get like 2 or 3 transactions a week. And so I'm going to label this as week of June 1st, 2020. July 1st, 2020. I just started my business. And so we're actually going to tie it back to something that we did before. So let me go back to invoice and make sure that this amount is correct. And so I want that amount because we're going to pretend that we received that cash. if only receiving real cash was this easy. Bank statement. So let's say Eunice and Odoo. Let's say, you know, I already know it's her. It's her thing. And so, let's say I already know that who the partner is, meaning that I already know who is paying. So you can actually put a partner here and then reconcile it directly like that. But if you don't know who the partner is, that's fine. You can leave it blank. And then let's say we have someone else, I don't know, sushi party. And I don't know who the partner is. Let's say they paid us $80,000. Yeah, $80,000. And so my starting balance, let's say I'm brand new, I have no money in the bank, and so my ending balance is that. And so this is my bank statement. Very easy, very simple. And so how would we reconcile this bank statement? So to reconcile this bank statement is very easy. You click the reconcile button and then you start clicking away. So actually I want to add a couple of more line items here just so we can walk through some unique things in the future. Let's say, I don't know what this is. Let's say my bank just gave me like a random string of tags and it's like for $90,000, $900,000. And let's say it's like a negative. I'm choosing big numbers because big numbers are fun to work with, you know. And so I'm gonna click reconcile. And you can actually see that for the sushi party, actually for each one of these, it's going to actually give you sort of what Odoo thinks that it actually, what Odoo thinks the invoice is. So if I click at Eunice at Odoo, you can see that it says, okay, this is for 14,600 and there was a partner in it already. So it's gonna look for everything in that partner and sort of match it to that. So it's gonna say, okay, you received this amount for 14,600. You have an invoice for 14,600 for this person. I think that this is what you should reconcile against. And so to reconcile against, literally I click that and then it's over. Easy as that. And so let's do that one more time. Let's see the Odoo magic one more time. And so let's say I reconciled it, but I don't think it's correct. It was the wrong person. And so to unreconcile it, what is easy to do is that you see this little button here. You literally click revert, and then it's done. It literally just makes it so that journal entry never happened. And so I can reconcile it again. So with the power of Odoo magic, we're gonna click it and then click validate. And then that means your bank reconciliation has been reconciled. Easy as that. So let's say for sushi party, I'm not sure what this account really is. Let's say I'm not really sure I know what this is. And I just want to leave it at the back end for a little bit. What you can actually do is you can actually create a suspense account, which we don't have. So let's create a suspense account. So do you see how with everything that we are trying to do, I've never left this window. I've never left this module. And everything is labeled out very clearly. You know exactly what it is, where it's going, you know what you're clicking on, you know if you click on configuration, it's going to take you to settings, and it's very simple like that. I think for learning, you know, Oracle and SAP, I remember in college, it was a mandatory course for accounting and finance majors to take a 2-quarter course, meaning that this was an entire year of an elective of how to use SAP. And we're not talking about how to post journal entries. We're talking about how to get from point A to point B. Literally how I get from the login screen to the accounting screen. Because there's 80,000 steps in between of how you log into SAP and then go into actually doing SAP work. And I think that really you can sort of get the understanding that it is a lot. It's like for you to force university students to learn how to use it, and not even to learn how to post journal entries, to learn how to work the mechanisms of it, that's when the system is too complicated. And so I'm gonna create my suspense account. It's gonna be like at the very end, so it's gonna be the 9,000 accounts. So I'm gonna it's gonna be off balance sheet. Save. And so I don't know really what this is. So I'm gonna, in manual operations, I'm gonna put it into suspense. I'm gonna click to check. I'm sorry, the suspense account is not off balance sheet. It should just be nothing actually. It should be, I'm gonna put it into expense. Yeah, there we go. It should be an expense account actually. Accountants, don't kill me. That was a junior mistake right there. And so we're gonna put it to suspense. And I want to check it again in the future, meaning that I want to see at month end if I have any journal entries or any invoices open for this amount. So I'm going to click the to check button. So first take a look at this button, see how it's blue. That means that this is real, meaning that once we validate it, we know that it's correct. If I click and I clearly clicked the wrong button, oh my god, I made a mistake. And so we can actually revert that immediately. So I'm gonna go into manual operations, click, and click the to check button. So once you click the to check button, that blue button becomes orange. And so what that's going to say is that you are not quite sure what this is. So you want to think it again for the future. So if I go back to my overview, you can see that there's a one to check. And so the one to check, you can click at any time during the month and you can remember, oh, right, I have that item in suspense. I need to make sure I know what that is before the month end. And so it's something very easy to check. And so I still have this random line of text for, negative $9,000, and I'm not really sure what this is. So let's say after a lot of investigation, I found out that this is a bank charge. And so what I could do, right, is I could go into account, click bank charges, and then reconcile it. But let's say I have bank charges every single week. We're not really going to want to do that, right? We want to make things as simple as possible. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to try to make a button. So in Odoo, you can make a reconciliation module, or as I like to call it, a one-stop button. So how do we do that? So we go to configuration, we go to reconciliation module, and you can see that it actually has something here to show you sort of a quick example of what it is. But I'm going to show you how easy it is just to set it up on your own. So you could also import, but let's just create it for now for simplicity purposes. So I'm going to click create, and so let's say it's bank fees. And you sort of have these options. And so the option I always click is manually create a write-off on clicked button, which basically is creating that one-stop button. So for the account, I'm going to choose the account that I want to reconcile this for when I click the button. So I'm going to go to bank fees, bank charges, and it's also going to sort of tell you like if you want a fixed percentage, if you want a percentage of the balance, or you want it from the label. I'm going to choose percentage of balance. And I'm going to either click 100 if 100 of it goes to bank charges, or if you think 80 of bank charges goes to bank charges, then you click that, and you think 20% goes to somewhere else, you can also do that. So I'm just going to click 100. Okay, and then I'm going to click save, and then it's over, it's done. You know, it's all set up. I'm going to go back to my bank statement, click reconcile, and then as you can see here, if we go back to that bank fee, what you can see here now is that there's this very neat, cute and cool little bank fee button that is automatically going to reconcile your bank fees. So I'm going to click bank fee, and it literally is done. It goes straight to bank charges. And so in Odoo, the way I work is that I have like a bajillion of these. I have like 20. And because there's, you know, exchange differences, payment differences, bank charges, all of that you don't really, you know, you don't really want to think about each and every day. Like for anything that you think is reoccurring, like payroll, if, you know, payroll all goes to one account, you go to payroll, click a, you know, make a button for it. Anything that you know, for me is that there's so much to do in terms of the finances that anything that can save you just a little bit, even 10 seconds of time every single time you do a bank statement, those 10 seconds are going to add up. And at month end, sometimes you don't have 10 seconds to spare. And so I'm going to validate that, and that was over. And so we basically just walked through our first bank statement. So at the end of the bank statement, we come back to here, bank reconciliation, we come back to here. And so you should take a look at everything to make sure that the ending balance is correct. Wow, I'm losing a lot of money. I'm losing a lot of money, so I should call my marketing people to, you know, send more marketing advertisement to Eunice because she's the only one buying. And so I'm looking at it, I'm making sure my starting balance is correct, I'm making sure my ending balance is correct, and I'm making sure that basically the bank statement looks correct. What should really happen is that at the end of every month, you will get a real bank statement that you should just attach to this bank statement and make sure that everything you do is correct. And so, yeah, everything is correct. It looks great to me. I'm going to click validate, and then Odoo saying, oh no, it's not correct. It's saying that your expected balance is different from your ending balance. And so Odoo is, at times when you do something that, you know, you might forget, Odoo fantastically or annoyingly comes up with these pop-up windows of something went wrong, please fix. And so they're really helpful because one, they help you to basically double check, and two, you don't really need to be scared if you're, you know, the only accountant working, because there's always going to be something helping you to check. They're annoying because, you know, sometimes when you're in a rush, you don't really want to pay attention to this. So it's saying that my ending balance is incorrect. So let me just take another look. Oh, and it's correct, right? Your ending balance is 0 here. And so what I'm going to do is basically I'm saying this ending balance is absolutely correct. I'm going to just copy and paste that here, save, and then click validate. That's fantastic. I need a negative here. I haven't come to terms with the fact that my business isn't successful. And so validate. And as you can see, it also comes with a cute little PDF version of that bank statement if you ever need to print it out, you know, if you need paper copies or whatnot. And so that's an example of a bank statement. As you can see, it's very easy. We still have that one to check in the future if we need to do it again. And that's sort of the amazingness. Okay, so let's walk through what I like to. Let's say we're gonna go back to that very earlier thing about assets. And so I think as an accountant, the two most difficult things that you really need to keep track of are 1, assets, and 2, prepaid and accrued. Prepaid and accrued, if you don't get those numbers right, if you don't make sure that every prepaid thing is done correctly, those things are going to mess up your life. And so I'm going to go back into my chart of accounts and search for my prepaid, which I don't have. Let's say, let's just create one. Let's just create a prepaid expenses. So prepaid expenses are part of your assets. Oh, actually, there's a other payable account here, so let's just use that. So let's say I don't want to name an other payable. Let's say I just want to name it prepaid expenses. I'm just going to change this to prepayments. As you can see, it actually comes back to that same thing that we just did in the asset module. There's another create and draft or create and validate. And so what you can do is here, we're going to click create and draft, and it's going to give you another deferred expense module. Same thing we did for the reconciliate for the asset module. You can actually do the same thing for your prepaid expenses. So let's say do a general one, prepaid expenses, prepaid, I can't spell. Let's say, let's just pick like a simple one, 2 months. So the deferred expense is going to be this one. Should really just save this. Okay. Actually, I already showed you how to do this portion. Actually, let's go into the actual deferred expense and see how to do it from that menu. I need to create another one as well. Let me make sure I have exactly what I need here to do this. So let's just take this entertainment one. Let's keep that on the back end, and let's say these are sushi expenses. I'm gonna go to the configuration and deferred expense module. So prepaid expense. The expense account is going to be that sushi expense. Miscellaneous. Cool. And so that is basically us just creating a deferred expense module from the expense deferred module screen. I don't really use this that often because it isn't as intuitive as just going to prepaid expenses and creating one here. Because once you create it in that setting, you have to come back here and make sure that you pick the prepaid one. A little bit complicated, in my opinion. That's all. And so I'm going to click allow reconciliation. And so let's say we need another bill. So let's say I paid my rent. Let's say is Big Boss Lady. So let's say that's my landlady. She's located in Hong Kong. Rent for August 2020. So let's say she's like a stickler for rent, okay? She always sends me the invoice like a month in advance for the next month. And so I need to pay it. And so that means I need to record a vendor bill. But I don't really want to recognize those expenses because they're for August's rent. So this is the way we're doing it. So I'm going to put August 2020 rent. And so I'm going to put it into prepaid expenses. Let's say my rent is extraordinarily high, right? I don't know, like 7 million. And so that's my rent. And then I click post. And as you can see, what just happened here is the same thing that happened with the asset one. And so what this process is the module process. And I think a lot of what we do, that we need to accrue or we need to defer or we need to depreciate each and every single month, there's always an option for that. So you can do this for prepaid ones, you can do it for accrued ones, you can do it for really anything that you can think of. And so let's just walk through this other example so we can just drive this home. So you can see that module I set up, I just basically randomly set up a module, and you're not concreted to that module. Everything can be changed. And so, the original one I set up is like, 5 years, why not? And so I don't need 5 years, I just need 1 month. And my first recognition date really should be for August 31st. And so the expense account was originally, sushi's. And so now I'm going to put it to rent and rates. Save, compute deferral. And so on August 31st, it's going to post that entry. Confirm. And so that's amazing. And so for our final portion of this, we're going to go through the reporting section. And so I saved this portion for last because I think that it is something that is very neglected in a lot of accounting software. I think in a lot of accounting software, the reporting section is very confusing. When you look at a balance sheet, there's just so much going on that you have no idea what it is that you need to be in charge of, or what it is that is really happening month over month. And so the reporting section here is very easy. There's literally a menu titled reporting. And so we're going to click on that menu and go, let's say I want to look at my profit and loss. It's not going to be pretty, right? Because we're losing a lot of money. You know, I'm paying like a lot of rent. And so rent is not even in here. Oh, right. That's because we didn't recognize that. I just had a brain fart there for a second, but we didn't recognize that rent, so it's not going to be in here. It's also going to tell you there are unposted journal entries prior or included in this period. That basically means that you have some entries in draft that haven't been posted yet. So I'm looking at my profit and loss statement, and so I can actually print preview it. You know, if I have a management meeting coming up and I need to present on the profit and loss, you can sort of have an amazing sort of template already done for you with all of your expenses. And as you know, as much as I hate to say this, Excel is very much a huge part of our lives, and it always will be. Even if Odoo can do 100% of everything online, I think, you know, for accountants' sanity, there always needs to be a double check, and Excel always will be that. And so there's always going to be an Excel export version as well. And so you can export. Every single one of the menu items that I just went through has an Excel export version. And so you can see this is my Excel export. I can really tell, you know, what it is happening month over month, year over year. And so let's say I want to compare this to last year as well. I can click comparison, and 2019, you know, wasn't in business, so nothing is happening. And it's going to tell you sort of the percentage increase or decrease if there's sort of figures to compare. And so if we were a much more complicated, you know, business, there would be a lot of accounts here, and you can really see, like, okay, I can tell, okay, this is my operating income, 14,600, and this is what it's going out in expense. And so month over month, you can also choose month over month, this month, or you can choose last month, and all of that. And so month over month, you can click on this month view, and you know, okay, so I know that I have, you know, 100,000 in fixed costs every single month. So I need to make at least 100,000 every single month to break even. And so it's very easy when you're doing, you know, cost accounting and sort of stuff like that, as well as budgeting is very easy as well. And so if you even take a look at the balance sheet, it lists out everything. Again, you have a print preview version. It's very, you know, clean and organized. And so you can really go through each and every single one of these. You can see all of your banks, all of your prepayments, and all of that. And there's even a general ledger sort of portion as well. And so what I use the general ledger portion is really for those prepaid expenses that were recorded before the automatic thing actually happened. So if you look at the prepaid expenses, you can really come in here and you're like, okay, I have this invoice that was prepaid, and so next month I need to reverse that. And so I can click on it, I can view the journal entry, and then I click, I can actually reverse this entry if need be. And so I think that's one of the biggest really selling points that Odoo can offer. And so we're sort of coming to the end of our time here, and reporting was really the last portion I really wanted to go through. And so I'm going to sort of wrap things up before we get into the Q&A section, is that I think the really big selling points of Odoo is really those 3 points. It's user-friendly, it's integrated, it's simple. We went through an hour-long lesson, and you can tell that even if I knew nothing about this system, if I knew nothing about accounting, I can still come in here, make an account, And you have to remember that this isn't a database that, you know, I had a functional person help me with. This is something that I literally went to odoo.com and tried it for free. We went through the exact same thing that you would go through if you tried it for free, for a free trial. There's nothing in here that's hidden. There's nothing in here that I did beforehand. It was really a first hands-on demo of this system. And so I think that Odoo is really designed for all of you. It's designed for every single business. It's designed for the small business. It's designed for the medium business. It's designed for the big business. And you have to remember, if there's ever a time that you need help, there's always a team of functional consultants here. There's always a team of salespeople here that are willing and able to, you know, answer each and every one of your questions. And I think the thing that we didn't get to show here is how easy it is to move from your accounting system now to Odoo with the help of a functional. And we didn't really demonstrate that here because there's no functional here, but I think, you know, we as accountants, you know, I've been in this field for quite a long time, and I think we're always very, you know, scared of risk and scared of change. And I think the scared of change comes from we don't know what's going to happen. You know, switching from one accounting system to another is very scary. It's very scary if you've been in business for 10 years and you've been using the same horrible accounting system. But if that's the thing that's holding you back, there's no need to be afraid, because there's functionals who have been through this so often that they know it from the back of their hand. They're going to be able to transfer all of your accounts to the new account, be able to set up everything. And it's just a matter of taking that chance with Odoo. And I think, you know, for you to trade off that very simple con for all of these pros is something that you should really take that chance for. And I hope that I've explained it very well, and that, you know, all of your scaredness or anything, hesitation of trying out Odoo was really answered in this section. And I think that, you know, hopefully, you know, coming from someone who's in your point of view, who's gone through all of these different accounting softwares, and be able to present my point of view, I hope that, you know, sort of speaks a little bit more volume than really coming from a salesperson who's never really dealt with this software. You know, I'm someone who's using this software in and out, and you know, we had some hiccups along the way, but they're hiccups that you can easily solve. And so that's really coming down to the end of our section. And so I'm going to answer a couple of Q&As. Okay. All right, so we need a layering. All right. Okay, so let's answer these one at a time. Let's answer this one first. So someone asked that version 11 does not have auto depreciation. You're correct. Version 11 does not have auto depreciation. I think, like with new iPhones that come out every year, Odoo also comes out with a new version every year. And there's going to be some, you know, items in the new version that you're not going to get in the old version. But if you are with Odoo already, there's always an option to upgrade, and you have a lot of functionals who are here for you to assist in the upgrade. And I think upgrading to the new version, especially this version that just came out, is something that's really worth the while. I'm sorry that the previous versions don't have it, but like with iPhone modules, iPhone 4 doesn't have the 3 cameras that iPhone 11 Pro has now. So there, you know, you sort of need to weigh your pros and cons if you want to upgrade or not. Okay, so someone also asked, what if you reverse the entry in a different month? And so that's actually a very good question. So let's say for the prepaid expenses, you're going to reverse them in a different month, right? Because you book the entry in June and you're going to reverse that in July. And so I don't know if this is meaning that you want to fix something you've done in the past, or if you want to be in July and want to reverse something in June. And so if you are in July and you want to reverse something in June, but the accounting period's closed, obviously you can't do that, but you can always reverse it for the new month. And so when you look at your chart of accounts, it's going to have those two reversing entries. So when you look at it on a quarterly basis, you're going to see those two reversing entry match off. Okay. Oh, okay. And so someone asked, how are we able to edit an existing bill which we have recorded as a fixed asset? And so so this is a little bit complicated because you're talking about a lot of moving parts here. And so what really would happen is that, do you remember that, let's see. Do you remember this asset that we were just in? So let's say the asset has already been, has already sort of posted 4 journal entries, and we decided that, you know, all of a sudden we need to change the bill for whatever reason. So let's say that, you know, what you're talking about is that you already created an asset and that you need to change this. And so if you've already created an asset, but nothing has been posted, it's very simple, right? You go to asset, you literally set it to draft, you check, delete, and then edit your bill and change the amount or change whatever you need to change, click post, and it'll automatically do that again. So let's see if we can walk. And sort of that's what you need to do. So let's walk through like a very quick example. Okay, so let's say this is where I am. And so I created the asset, I validated the asset already. And so let's go back to asset. And I'm like, oh my God, it's completely incorrect. I double fudged the numbers. It should be 800,000 or whatever. And so I'm gonna go to asset, click the asset, click set to draft, click back to the asset, uncheck, click delete. The asset's gone. Reset to draft my bill, add my extra 0, save, post, and then there's your new asset. But if you're talking about that it's already done a couple of journal entries and you're like, okay, it's completely incorrect. And so what you can do there actually is that you could first pause your depreciation. Let's say I need to pause it for June. And then reverse this entry. Reverse this entry, delete the asset, and sort of do that same process all over again. Okay. Okay. Someone also asked why the fixed asset, not the sushi rice maker. It probably was a little bit of a mistake when I set up that account, that it didn't really register the account, or something with the Odoo module didn't really register that account. So that's why I picked the fixed asset one. So someone also asked, can we make a sub account on a chart of on an account in a chart of accounts? Is a sub account meaning like a subsidiary account? Like you want to create 2 portions of an account in one, meaning that for fixed assets you want like another account underneath it. I don't think there is a way to do that, and I don't think you should necessarily do that, because there's going to be if you post, I'm assuming that's what you're meaning, unless I'm completely not getting that question. But if you're talking about if I want to create like another account under an overarching account, no, there's no way to do that, because in journal entries, you shouldn't really have, like, you shouldn't be able to post to one account and then post directly to another. That just leads to like a whole bunch of accounting chaos. And so Odoo doesn't give you that option. We need a layer of groups. Okay, so someone also asked, matching new PO with an existing vendor bill. Well, I've used the autocomplete option, but I realized there was no source document reference then in the vendor report. Matching new PO with an existing vendor bill. Existing vendor bill. That one is, I'm a little confused at that one, but because the way we match vendor bills, if there is a PO, is that we do it the opposite way, meaning that you should have a purchase order before you have a vendor bill, if that makes sense. And so you should probably do it that way. Like, it wouldn't make sense for you to receive a bill from a vendor and then create the purchase order, because the PO comes before the vendor bill. So if you're going to use the autocomplete option, you should really go from the vendor bill to the purchase order, not from the purchase order to the vendor bill, because that sequence of invoicing doesn't really make sense. Do you know what I mean? So purchase orders basically are what you send to the vendor for them to send you back the vendor bill. And so you wouldn't receive the vendor bill and then send out another purchase order. So you should try doing it the opposite way. You should create the vendor bill and try to match it to the purchase order, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so let's just answer one more question, and then, are there even one more question? I don't think there are any more questions, but okay. And so that's unfortunately all the time that we have for today. And so there's a lot of questions, but there's always a consultant standing by. You can check the description below to set up a meeting with a consultant, and they'll be more than happy to answer all of your questions. Thank you, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of Odoo webinar.